Happy Creations, where we sew the scraps of your life into beautiful creations. This week, we're going to make headbands. Now, these are a great accessory. People, you could put them on a baby, you could put them on your 5-year-old, teenager, even adults wear them. In fact, when COVID first started, I made some of these for our oldest daughter, who's an emergency room nurse, and we put buttons so that the buttons were on the side of the headband and they could put the mask on and just put the elastic around to the buttons. Either way, these things are great for so many reasons. They're great because you can coordinate them with, your fabrics to match your outfit. You could make some for the 4th of July or Easter or St. Patrick's Day. You could take your fabric and coordinate them for anything that you want. But to me, the biggest thing is you can take fabric scraps that are just small, really, and make these, and they come out great. So the one thing that I want to talk about before we go to the cutting table is what you're going to need for supplies is, and this is minimal, but I want you to take care in what you choose. So we're going to talk for a moment about elastic, because you are going to need elastic for this. Now you can use 3/4 inch. That's probably what I prefer, but I also have made some just today using 1 inch elastic. The one thing I want you to watch is this. How much stretch do you get? Okay. Look at this adorable Disney elastic that I bought at Martin's probably 8 years ago now. Isn't it cute? Well, there's a reason it's still on here, because cute is about all it's good for. Because when they printed the words on there, you can't stretch it. It doesn't stretch, and if it doesn't stretch, it's not great elastic. Also, now I have been gifted over time lots of little things that people pick up for me, and it's very thoughtful of them and great. This is elastic that is a little bit yellowed with age, and I can hear it crinkle, because you know what? This was made with actual rubber in it, and when it ages and you pull it apart, it pulls apart. Literally, it pulls apart and loses its stretch. So if you have some elastic that you've had in your sewing room for 30 years, you're probably better off just to chuck it and start fresh. So that's what I wanted to talk about first, because you can have elastic with different stretches. This one's got a little bit of a pull. This one is made differently. But all you have to do is put it side by side and see which one has more give or more strength or whatever it is that you're looking for in your elastic. And I don't know about you, but I have all kinds of pieces like this that are just cut. And these headbands are a great way to use up your scraps of elastic, your scraps of fabric. We're going to use it all. Okay, so let's go over to the cutting table. Really simple project. We're going to lay this out here. We're going to sew some up. We're going to talk about different sizes and how we can accommodate anyone from a baby size up to an adult. Okay, let's go do this. So these are the headbands that I made up ahead of time. Got cute little unicorn with some I love you fabric. See, these are just small pieces of fabric that you might have left over from another project. Here's another unicorn, made a little bit of a different size. Okay, just to show you again about these elastics, you just want to be careful with what you're using, okay? So maybe you have some small pieces of fabric laying around. Maybe you have some beautiful tulip pink fabric, and I had some of her color works that was gifted to me, and I have this. Now, this is cut 6 inches by 15 inches, and this is 3 inch by 7 inch, and this is 1 inch elastic cut at 7 inches wide. Okay, now this can all vary, okay, and I don't want to confuse you. I just want to let you know that anywhere between 5 to 6 inches in width is average, okay, and anywhere from 14 to 15 inches. Now I have one over here that I cut at 14. This one is 15 by 6. Now if you're using 1-inch elastic, you're going to cut this at 3 inches wide, and this is 11.5 inches long, okay? So I'm going to place these together. 6 by 15, 3 by 11.5, and a 1-inch piece, 1-inch wide piece of 7-inch elastic. And I'm going to set this to the side. Then I had some perfect fabric for this. Isn't that adorable? This was just gifted to me, and I thought, what a cute headband this would make. And we have some more of the I Love You fabric, and we have a piece of 3/4 inch elastic. So see, this is what changes, because you need it a little wider to accommodate the 1 inch, or narrower for the 3/4 inch. So this is 14 inches, and I cut this at 5 1/4 only because it's pretty close to what I had left from that piece, and it doesn't matter. You don't want to, you know, hack up all your fabric just to cut off a 1/2 inch. Leave it on there. Just makes it a little wider. So again, this is 5 1/4 by 14 inches. This is 2 1/2 by 11. And this is a 7-inch piece of 3/4 inch elastic. So before we get to sewing those, I'm just going to show you what I did here. Some of these, I just changed up the measurements, because this should be an adult size, okay? But as you know, I mean, some children have bigger heads or smaller heads or whatever, the same with adults. So just play around with it a little bit, okay? So like this one was cut this at 5 inch by 12, and I cut this at 2 1/2 by 10, and used a 6 1/2 inch piece of elastic. So just try out a few different widths and lengths of your fabrics and your elastics to see what you come up with. But as you can see, this minus your seam allowance is going to be the, whatever you've cut this at is what this is going to be. That's 3 inches. So I know that I cut that at 6 1/2 once I take off my seam allowances. All right, and it will work with directional fabric. You just have to be a little more careful. But we're going to get to the sewing next. I just want to prep while we're right here. So let's prep our project, okay? Oh, and the other thing you're going to need is either a bodkin or a safety pin to turn your tube right side out, okay? And this project is so simple. Okay, so put your fabric right sides together. You don't have to pin, but for purposes of me showing you what we're working on, I'm going to pin. And you will need your iron, so you might want to get that heating up while you're sewing this. So just put your seams together, make sure your edges meet. That's all we're doing. Just like this. I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, and using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'm going to back tack, sew along here and back tack, and the same thing here, back tack, sew, and back tack. And I like to use a fairly tight stitch on this, so either a 1.8 or 2 millimeter stitch length. So I'll let you go to the sewing machine with me. We're going to stitch these up. The rest of the tutorial I'm going to show you from the sewing machine area. So I will get these ready as well. Here we are. Okay, I am going to stitch these using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I apologize, you can't quite see. I guess you can see a little better there now. And again, I'm going to backpack at the beginning and the end of this. As you'll see, these work up in no time. They're a great little project. And you know, it's really difficult for me to say, well, this will fit, you know, like a 10-year-old, or this will, because head sizes do vary. So you're going to have to check it out for yourself and find out what works best for you. Because we are all different. The same but different. These apart, take our pins out. Of course, my threads stick to my dry hands. Okay. And really, you don't have to pin it. I'm sure you can hold the fabric together for this. Okay, the bigger pieces we can just flip right side out like so. This Tula fabric is nice and bright for summertime. I'm not sure who I'm gifting these to, but I'm sure one of my granddaughters or someone will like these. So just flip them right side out. Now, what I do, you might have a bodkin. I do not. I use a safety pin. And I'm going to put it through one layer. And then I'm going to poke it down inside my tube. And there are so many different ways to turn these. There are tube turners and bodkins and tweezers and chopsticks and straws, and you know, just do whatever you have handy or whatever you're used to doing. This is me. I'm old school with the safety pin here. That's how I learned it this way, and it's just how I do it. Okay, so there's my other one. Also, I have my iron heating up while I'm doing this. Just putting this down inside. It is a very rainy day today here. We've had, I think it's 5 or today's 6 days of rain in a row. And the sun was out for a bit this morning, but not long enough. Not long enough for me. Okay. This one is a little bit narrower. This is the 3-inch piece. But just grab onto it. It will come out through there. Just have faith. There. Just like that. And flip the larger piece back through. Then we're going to press these. I'll take you to the iron with me, because I know you guys want to go with me to the iron, right? You just want to see my new setup here. This is my first filming since my husband moved my room around for me. I moved it one way. Well, I didn't move it. He did. And I thought that it was how I wanted it, but nothing worked right because I couldn't film from where I had my sewing machines. So that did not work out very well. Okay, let's meet over at the sewing machine, or at the ironing board. Okay, let's get the pieces together. Now, you technically could put your seam up at the top and wiggle that around so that your seam goes this way. I personally don't do that. I lay it out through the middle, and I just make sure that it's not folded, and then I press it. And then I flip. Oh, look how centered that turned out. Those sunglass ladies are centered and looking spiffy, aren't they? Okay, set that aside. And do the same thing here. For this is our piece that our elastic is going into. And again, you could try finagling it down to one edge or the other, but I'm just going to do this. And you could use steam in your iron if you want to. Totally up to you. It might make it a little easier. Oops, I folded mine in there. So I need to straighten that out a little bit. Okay. And as you can see, this would be a wonderful thing to mass produce, like for a craft fair. Or if you were making, say you have 3 granddaughters or 4 nieces or whoever, you could make a whole bunch at once, because this is a great thing to just, I mean, who doesn't have all these scraps laying around? That's what you're doing on my channel. We make things with our scraps. So I know you have scraps laying around. So let's use them in some really nifty ways, because we know we can make a quilt, we know we can make a bag, but sometimes we have all these little pieces and we want to make something different. And that is this. Okay, I'm going to turn my iron off because I don't need it anymore for this. You are going to need your safety pin again, okay? So, my 3/4 inch piece goes on this one, and my 1 inch wide elastic goes on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed this up through here, your elastic right up through there with your safety pin. And you want to go all the way to the further end. Just like that. Well, not the further end, I guess, this end. And we're going to pin that right there. See how the elastic is right to the end, okay? And I'm going to do it as well on this end. Not on this end, on this fabric. I can't get my words straight today, maybe because I haven't filmed in a week or so. You think that's what it is? All right. So feed it through goodness, if I could grab it. Yeah, these are similar to, you know, great craft fair items, similar to like a scrunchie or things like that. Okay. I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine. If I could pin it here. And about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, I'm going to stitch back and forth 3 or 4 times on both of these, and I'll meet you right back here. Okay, now I have stitched both edges, and you can clean this up a little bit. If you've got a little bit of elastic showing through, so you just neaten it up a little bit if you want, but really it's not going to show. All right, before we go back over to the sewing machine, I wanted to feed these through here and show you how to do this other side. So you're doing the same thing. You're bringing this edge of the elastic up to the edge of the fabric. Make sure it isn't twisted in there. We don't want it twisted at all. So as soon as that elastic is right at the edge, pin it in place. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one. And then everything else is going to take place over at the sewing machine. Again, a pin to hold it in place. Okay, so let's meet back at the sewing machine. Okay, so here we are. We're going to stitch across the edge of these just like we did with the other ones. And I go back and forth 3 or 4 times. No need to break your thread. Just keep right on going. Snip your threads. And again, I like to take the edge and clean that up a little bit, like that. Just makes it look a little neater. And this one didn't really need it. Okay, on to the next part. Now, taking this and having it right side up. Let's see if I can pan out a little bit here. There we go. Okay, so we have this, remember our seam? That's what we're going to call the wrong side. And this is going to be the right side, okay? We also have a seam on this and a right side. We're going to put right sides together. Now, pull that extra fabric that you have down just a bit so that this is all workable, okay? This is what we're going to do. We're going to lay it across the center, or where you feel the center is. No one's going to measure it, so don't worry. Lay it just like that and fold. Fold each of your edges over, just like that. That's all you've done. See? Fold one over and fold the other. And there's no rule about which side needs to go first. And then put a pin in it. Come down to the other end. See? Pull your fabric down out of the way. And again, lay it like this in the middle. And I always look to see where this end is, and I fold it the same way. Whichever edge I folded first that time, I fold first this time. And I'm going to put a pin in this. All right, let's repeat it. Right side, so the seam is down. So right side to right side. Fold it over. And pin. Center it. Fold it over. Whoops. Hold on to it, I guess. Fold it over. And pin. Okay, so now we're going to stitch it. Now I use a little bit more of a seam allowance now because I'm going through a lot more thicknesses. So I'm using roughly 1/4 inch. And again, I'm going to go back and forth. Take my pin out. And I have the second one. I'm going to put that right on there. I'm going backwards and forwards, just reinforcing my stitches. Do the flip side. Then we'll be done. I probably sew over it way too many times. I probably don't need to, but it's just what I do. Not sure why that caught up, but it did. Sew it from this side. Going to clean all my threads up. Going to trim my threads, make it look nice and neat over here. That's what it should look like. Trim my other edge up because there's always threads. You could put some fray check or something on there if you really felt it necessary, or you could zigzag over the edges, but watch this. Now let me zoom out a little bit. Oh, almost tip you. All right. So just give it a pull and flip it around. Your headband is done. Look at that. See, you've got the stretch in the back. Okay. So let me pull these threads. Okay, so again, you just hold on to your elastic. Okay. because that tucks right inside there. So you don't see that little end again. And then you just flip it. And there we are. Isn't that cool? Some headbands. Look at what we did. We made some headbands. Yay! So look at what we did today. Just a cute little project with little pieces of fabric. And I know you have these scraps laying all over your sewing room. You do, right? But even if you cut into yardage to make something that matches, an adorable little project to make. And as you can see, they don't take any time to make up. They're just a really quick project. I hope that you liked spending time with me today. This is actually the first filming that I've done since I've moved everything around, or my husband has moved everything around. I've never really been able to film using my semi-industrial brother because I couldn't get the tripod near it. So I always filmed on my other machine, and I had a few people ask me, you know, don't you use your semi-industrial? I do. I just couldn't film it until now. So that worked out great. I think the camera angles were good. Let me know what you think. But either way, thank you so much for hanging out with me today here at Marie's Scrappy Creations. And I hope that you make 1, 2, 10 or more. Maybe you could make them for a craft fair. Either way, thanks for hanging out with me today. And remember, be kind out there. The world needs more of that. I'll see you next time right here. Bye-bye.